I ventured out this year. I left my job as the chief product officer at Dribbble to start a brand new company. And that company is gigantic. My goal is to help you master the new influential disciplines that are driving results within organizations, like product leadership taught by Ben Foster, the former CPO at Whoop. It's not just video courses. We're combining video lectures with take-home assignments and exercises, and then small group mentorship to really help level you up, and all at a cost that most companies' learning and development budget covers. So if you're interested, go to gigantic.is, that's gigantic.is, sign up for a course, and I'll walk you through everything that you need to know. And if you enroll and let me know that you heard about this on Rocketship, I've got a special discount for you.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. I'm Michael Sacca.
I'm Joelle Steiniger.
And I'm Matt Goldman.
And we're having 20-minute talks with entrepreneurs teaching you how to launch your product into revenue.
Check out our book at howtobuildarocketship.com to reserve your launch discount and to download a free chapter.
Welcome to the 50th episode of the Rocketship podcast. That's right, 50 episodes. Today we talked to the one and only Sean Ellis. We discussed how he increased revenue at Qualaroo just by changing up their pricing model and his motivation to build a community at GrowthHackers.com. Stay tuned, lots of really good information in this one.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our awesome sponsors. CodeShip makes continuous delivery simple and easy. Go to codeship.com/rocketship to get 20% off 3 months.
We'd also like to thank InVision app. InVision is by far the best prototyping and collaboration tool on the market. Go to InVisionApp/Rocketship to get the starter plan free for 90 days.
Customer.io is a modern email platform built for startups. Go to customer.io/Rocketship to start sending emails that convert.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. We're here with Sean Ellis, the founder and CEO of Qualaroo. Sean, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
So tell us, for those that don't know, what does Qualaroo do for you?
So Qualaroo is really voice of customer insights, primarily for improving the experience and conversion rates on your website. So, people are constantly guessing A/B tests, trying to iterate to improve, performance of a website and meeting goals. But Qualaroo just makes it really easy to ask users, like, what are you trying to do? What's stopping you from doing it? And when you get that feedback from customers, you can just be a lot smarter about the changes that you're making and improve it just a lot more quickly than just sort of random A/B test guessing.
Totally, yeah. So, and you had, this was originally a Kissmetrics product, right? It was
right.
A freemium Kissmetrics?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I had been an advisor to Kissmetrics, and I'd actually encouraged them to develop a survey product to complement their funnel analytics, because the qualitative insights are really important for conversion rate optimization, and they had the great sort of quantitative analytics tool set. So they got into it through my encouragement, and then ultimately, though, that their sort of core business was taking off so much that they weren't giving it the attention that they thought it needed, and I saw an opportunity to go in and acquire it and develop it on my own.
Nice.
With the team that I have.
Yeah. So what you guys did a little bit of trying to find the value of it once you acquired it. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like.
So the first thing that I did, they were using a freemium business model, and that was the type of business model that I had used with Dropbox and LogMeIn and a bunch of other companies. So I was pretty familiar with how it worked, and basically, on a high level, you need a free version that's good enough that people really evangelize it and spread the word. And if you can kind of get that growth engine going, then what you give up in sort of lost revenue, you make up in like upgrade rates, and that ultimately you're selling into a much bigger pool.
Okay.
And so I looked at how they had implemented freemium for Qualaroo, and basically realized that they just didn't put enough value in the free product to make the engine work. So first thing I did was I made the free version much more valuable, much more flexible, and nothing happened.
Okay.
So I was certain that was going to accelerate growth, and it was going to be awesome. And what we really saw was that it actually didn't. It didn't help at all. And so, but we learned something, and that's really kind of early stage startup. It's all about sort of validating your assumptions, and when things don't happen the way that you expected, trying to understand why they happen that way and seeing what you can do with that new piece of information. And so for us, we really learned that when people needed voice of customer insights for optimization, they really needed it, and they were willing to pay for it. And when they didn't know they need it, even if it was free, it didn't create a whole lot more demand for it. So there just wasn't nearly as much price sensitivity. So we went the opposite direction, really invested in bringing the product to the next level to really do the job well, and have we discontinued the free version, increased pricing on the paid versions as we added functionality, and so yeah, it's a more expensive product now, but in the big picture of things, a couple $100 a month, if you're uncovering one insight that improves conversion rates, that's often, I know of single A/B tests that have led to $1 million plus gains. So the cost side, it either works or it doesn't work. And if it's working, it's worth it. And if it's not, people shouldn't pay for it.
Right. So did you go back to those free customers and say, hey, we have more value here, we're going to start charging? Or
well, we grandfathered them in for probably a year, and then we finally discontinued it for them. And we still have some people on some of the cheaper old plans, and but they're cut off from a lot of the functionality that we've introduced in the last couple of years. So, slowly but surely, we're moving people to the higher value plans, and it's just part of it is basically building a business around sort of an enterprise sales and distribution model versus a more of a consumer or prosumer or small business distribution model, and we've moved more toward the enterprise model where you just can't serve all customers and do it effectively. So, the ones that have been on those old legacy plans, we just sort of have cruise controlled them, but basically building the business so that we've got prices that are high enough to support a sales team, where they have interesting enough commissions and they can provide a little bit more consultative selling and some of the things that it's just a different model and one that has led to much better growth in the product, which is the whole point of changing.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can, would you mind talking to us at all about the sales team and what you found was the good number that started to motivate for you guys?
You mean like their on target earnings or the number of salespeople, or
the kind of price of the product that allowed you to grow a sales team?
So our average transaction size now is probably a couple $1,000s. Okay. Because a lot of people are buying on annual plans, and we've got more expensive plans, enterprise plans, and other things. So I think once you get to a couple $1,000s, you still need a pretty high velocity sales process. You're not going to do 2 or 3 sales a month and get a commission and do well with that. It just doesn't. So essentially, they basically need to do multiple sales per day to have a good commission and justify even their base salary and everything else. Right. So between 1 and 3 sales a day, they're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well, and so and then it's all about lead gen too, and making sure that we're generating enough leads for them, and or alternatively that there's an outbound calling model that would work. So far, we haven't really tapped into that very well. But again, that an effective outbound calling model, because you're looking probably at longer sales cycles. Mm-hmm. We probably need to have an average transaction value of closer to, say, $10,000 to really support effective outbound calling. Okay,
and that would be like $10,000 a year for the service.
Right. Okay. It's also just so it's 10,000 a year, but we're like right now we offer quarterly plans and annual plans. If it's a quarterly plan, we mostly send them online just to buy it. Salespeople will be kind of tied into the performance of that account still, but yeah, we really encourage them to move people toward annual plans.
This episode is brought to you by Miro. So when I was at Dribbble, over the 6 years, there was one tool that we would always use when we were doing cross-team collaboration. Whenever the collaboration started to get complex, we would bring in Miro. It made it incredibly easy to align stakeholders across regions and time zones and definitely teams with ease. And we were able to do all of that while being a completely remote team. It also has integrations into Jira, Azure, Rally, a lot of the tools that you're using already for product management and engineering. So you can import tasks from them as native cards, and it helps you see the big picture. It also helps stakeholders to understand what work needs to be done. It was incredibly valuable. And then they even have an estimation app that gives you a clear understanding of the work scope, lets you identify gaps, and then it has the ability for you to set clear expectations for delivery, especially when you're working across functions. So your first 3 Miro boards are free forever when you sign up today. Go to Miro.com/podcast. That's Miro.com/podcast.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that inbound lead process. You guys have created one of my favorite communities, GrowthHackers. What prompted you to start that? And then how do you use it for lead gen?
So what we found, one of the big growth vectors for Qualaroo was just branding that we have on the unit itself. So there's a little powered by Qualaroo that runs on our small business plan. Okay. And so that works really well when it's on the right site. So if it's on it's on like Disney or some kids site, who cares if a bunch of kids are clicking on power customers, versus if it was on a marketing site, the conversion rate was actually really good from a click, like 100 times better than when it was on a less targeted site. Okay. And so what we decided was, if we could build a big audience ourselves, then it was a good place just even to kind of demo the product. And then the other piece is that in the marketing tools and technology business, the one channel that seems to work pretty well for just about everybody is content marketing. Okay. And so, essentially marketing is evolving so quickly. There's so many new tools and channels evolving, and things that worked last week aren't working this week. Mm-hmm. And so marketers are pretty information hungry. And so most of the marketing tools companies have realized that if they pump out quality content, they can build a relationship on that and drive conversions from that content to customers. Yeah. But the content creation business is kind of a pain in the butt. And I just did not like the idea of having to build a big team to create and manage content and crank that content out. And there's thousands of marketing tools now, and everybody's realizing that content is how you distribute your product. Mm-hmm. Like the Y Combinator class, most recent one, more than half the B2B companies were marketing technology companies, which is way more than they've had in the past. And it's just, so you got all these companies that are coming out and this glut of content. So we saw an opportunity to essentially aggregate that content and then have a community that could curate that content. So kind of looking at the playbook of a Reddit or Hacker News, or essentially any place where you have people voting on content, submitting content, commenting around that content, and just mm-hmm. building community around that content. And so, that was a couple of different sort of things that led to building GrowthHackers.com, and then I also just a couple of just personal voids. So those are sort of the opportunistic things. Mm-hmm. A couple of personal voids was it's really hard for a marketer to build their profile, their personal profile among their peers. And so I even at when I left LogMeIn, I'd run marketing at 2 companies, both of them from sort of customer zero to IPO filing, and nobody knew who I was. And there's a ton of good marketers out there that just had no reputation, and I had to basically start blogging and building a Twitter following and speaking at conferences. And once I kind of got all those things going, I could build a bit more of a reputation and start to really build community with other marketers. But that was the other thing with GrowthHackers, is that I really wanted to give people a platform where they could interact and build their profile among their peers and learn from their peers and get inspiration kind of on a daily basis. And so we launched it last October, and it's been flying. I mean, look at the Alexa ranking compared to any other marketing site out there, and you'll see that we're passing a lot of well-funded marketing companies left and right, and we really haven't put any money behind it. We've put limited people resources behind it, but it's been really like 3 of us working hard, but it's just hustle, and just making sure that we kind of got the community to that tipping point where it was self-sustainable, and then really trying to build on that momentum ever since.
Yeah, you guys kind of hit it right when that growth hacking term was becoming really popular in the marketing community. Yeah. When you go there, I don't see Qualaroo, Right. How do you drive people into your product? How do you use it for your benefit?
So, I mean, we're pretty subtle with it, because it's our goal is not necessarily to short-term milk it for everything we can. Totally. So, I mean, we've really just used the product like any other customer would, where we pretty early on through surveys figured out that most marketers get their information from Twitter, for example, and so we've really kind of plugged into Twitter as a growth vector. We just, it's essentially through running targeted surveys to people and having that powered by on there, we're able to drive enough lift. But probably the biggest, it's very indirect in the benefit that Qualaroo's gotten, but probably the biggest benefit has been it's raised my profile personally to where now every big market, I keynoted an Optimizely conference yesterday in Seattle. I'm speaking at HubSpot's inbound conference in a few weeks. I'm essentially a lot of these conferences where they hadn't invited me to speak. Since we started GrowthHackers, I've basically been doing a presentation every week, for the last several weeks, where it's either a webinar or a live presentation. Flew out to New York for a Percolate conference called Transition a couple weeks ago, and it's and what's nice is that it spins the flywheel on both Qualaroo and on GrowthHackers, and further improves reputation, which leads to more invitations, which so it's one of those things that and every time I speak at a conference, we hit record trial numbers on Qualaroo. So
that's awesome.
So they definitely go together. I think Qualaroo benefits more from GrowthHackers than GrowthHackers necessarily from Qualaroo, but we're building out functionality that I think will benefit both properties and kind of bring them a little bit closer together. And so that's kind of the next phase is to bridge that a little bit more.
Nice. So you've been in marketing for a while now, and you've probably seen a lot. What is some of the more interesting kind of growth hacks that you've seen that you didn't even think might work?
I think that a lot of it is more kind of like how I was saying with Qualaroo and GrowthHackers, that it tends to be more of kind of a flywheel where it's not like a single growth hack that's sort of that breakthrough thing. But I mean, like I can tell you, in the first company I was in, just realizing that if we widgetized our game content and embedded that game content around other websites, we could drive more more traffic and engagement than if we just went out and bought ads. And so we sort of had this viral distribution on widgetized game content. And it was in the mid 90s where, you just didn't see somebody doing that really until YouTube kind of used that same game plan, 4 or 5 years later. But it was an engine that brought us to a top 10 website in the world. And then, of course we got acquired by a big enterprise that kind of didn't understand it and turned it off, and then we're disappointed that the growth rate stalled. But
and they kept buying TV ads.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so early on, I think there's always sort of creative things, but it's more about sort of looking at the nature of a particular product and what is that unique advantage that a particular product or service has, and how do you really tap into the growth channel that makes the most sense? So for games, it was this engagement, and it was exploiting an opportunity that most other websites were looking to improve their engagement, their yield on visitors. And so we could basically give them something for free that made their own website more engaging, and then gave them a return on sort of page view that we actually did pay out an affiliate fee for people who converted through these games. But it turned out like it was about 10 times higher than they could get through an ad banner that added no value.
Wow.
Like they would actually have good engaging content, gameplay content on their website, and they were able to generate significantly more revenue. So kind of just finding those win-win opportunities.
Yeah.
Dropbox, the same kind of thing where it was basically just looking like the nature of the product. There's great sharing and collaboration opportunities within the product, and so we played around with Google AdWords in the early days, but clearly there was just so much more to be gained in maximizing how people shared. Okay, giving them more prompts to share, taking the experience on someone who hadn't been exposed to Dropbox and making just a clear kind of introduction to what Dropbox was, and driving a conversion flow that made sense, and just kind of turning up those knobs. So again, like I think a lot of it's not sort of kind of an individual growth hack as much as it is sort of understanding the nature of a product, the nature of a market, the unique advantages a product has, how you can drive distribution through product experience more than just sort of kind of that traditional go out and buy some advertisements and hope to build something interesting, sort of playing on the battlefield that essentially and when you're in a startup, you just don't have that many resources, and trying to go head to head with companies that have essentially an infinite amount of resources compared to what you have as a startup. You just can't win that game. So you have to sort of you have to figure out something that's a little bit more unique. But I think it tends to not be sort of as rocket sciencey as someone might think. It's more about just sort of thinking, what are the unique advantages that my product or service has? Where are my customers the potential customers that I'm trying to get? Where are they today? How do I bridge those things so that I can come up with a unique distribution channel that's just kind of unique to my situation, and realizing that a lot of times it's not going to work the first time you try it or the second time, and that you're going to have to keep tweaking until you get the thing working. But ultimately, that if it does work, then a lot of times it'll scale and create something that's pretty interesting.
Nice. Why do you think large companies aren't necessarily adopting this rapidly? This kind of marketing thought?
Because people don't care. I mean, it's. I mean, they care, but what I'm just saying is that, like, a lot of times in a big company, that they're kind of 9 to 5. They're sort of they don't have that sort of desperation plus ownership that just kind of makes you sort of say, man, if I can figure this out, this will be incredible. Mm-hmm. And if I can't, I'm going to be out of a job, not because I'm going to get fired, but because the company's not going to exist, and I think that kind of a situation really forces you to think outside the box and try things where, if you're working in a really big company, you're as worried about getting in trouble for doing things that are non-traditional as you are about, trying to achieve results that are going to reflect well on you. That you just kind of don't have the same incentive structure to really do things. But it's funny. I was actually at this conference that I was at yesterday. I found it really funny that someone from Microsoft was saying that, well, we're no Amazon when it comes to resources. So,
so this happens all over the place.
Yeah. She was talking about her little tiny business unit, but it's just amazing that someone at Microsoft would be talking about not having the resources of someone else.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Sean, for coming on. Where can we keep up with you online? And where do we find GrowthHackers and Qualaroo?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Twitter. So just Sean Ellis, SeanEllis, is my Twitter handle. And then GrowthHackers.com, I'm on there every day too. And, encourage people to post and ask GH if you have a question for me, and the community will jump into. It's a great way to sort of spark discussion. And, everybody who answers is kind of in exploratory mode. That's the only reason they have answers, is that they're as curious as they are knowledgeable. So, and then Qualaroo, if you're interested in trying it does have a free trial, a couple-week free trial, and so those are the different places where you can engage with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Michael. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rocketship podcast. If you haven't yet, pop open iTunes and subscribe to be notified of future episodes. We have some really great ones lined up.
And while you're there, leave us a review. We really appreciate each and every one of them.
What's the boy to do if he'll never be a gangster? Anger in his heart, but he'll never be a gangster. If you move into his neighborhood, he'll never make a sound. Ooh. What's the boy to do if he'll never be a rockstar? Singing from his heart, but he'll never be a rockstar. If you move into his neighborhood, he'll never make a sound. If you move into his neighborhood, bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. What's a girl to do if she'll never be a rock star? Singing from her heart, but she'll never be a rock star. If you move into her neighborhood, she'll never make a sound. If you move into her neighborhood, she'll never make a. If you move into her neighborhood, she'll never make a sound. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood.
We're going to put that on tape for posterity.
Ruining the tape.
Life in the city. Makes more sense when Jesus calls. Bang, bang, boy, never move to. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the wood. Bang, bang, boy, never move to my hood, 'cause danger is crawling out the. Bang, bang, boy.
It's pretty eerie, you know. You're in a place that no human's ever been before.
This is Armchair Explorer, where the world's greatest adventurers tell their best stories from the road.
And 4 of us were swept down the side of the mountain, and then I knew there was no way out of this thing.
From the heart-pounding to the inspiring and the downright insane. Find Armchair Explorer, a part of APT Podcast Studios, wherever you get your podcasts.
Go and find what it is in the world that matches that wildness in yourself.
Hey, my name is Lovan Rumpf, and I've been working my ass off as a celebrity stylist by day and a podcast host by night. At the Low Life Podcast, it's all about keeping it real. We're talking fashion, beauty, to religion, sex, drugs, mental health. I mean, there's no topic off limits here, and vulnerability is mandatory. You can find my podcast, The Low Life, that's L-O, no W, everywhere and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. New episodes are out every Thursday. We'll see you then.